The air smelled of burning metal and ozone, thick with the remnants of plasma fire, and the acrid scent of scorched flesh. The battle was over. Silence settled over the charred ruins, broken only by the distant hum of dying power cells and the slow, labored breathing of Captain Elias Voss. He pressed a hand to his ribs, wincing. His suit's automed injection was failing. Pain crawled up his side like fire, but his focus wasn't on himself. It was on her. Across the shattered battlefield, standing atop a broken pillar of alien stone, was Verika, first blade of the Syndicer. 9 feet of power and precision, her midnight indigo skin glowed faintly under the dying embers of battle. Her armor, etched in Syndicari war sigils, was scorched, revealing glimpses of the hardened muscle beneath. She held her blade low, but her golden eyes never left him. They had tried to kill each other only hours ago. Now, she was the only thing keeping him alive. Elias staggered forward, each step a battle against his own failing body. His exosuit's AI flickered warnings, internal bleeding detected, oxygen depletion imminent, but he ignored them. Instead, he watched Verika descend from her vantage point, her movements too smooth, too controlled for a warrior who had fought through hell. She wasn't victorious. She was calculating. And that was more dangerous than any weapon she carried. Your kind should not have survived this long. Her voice was a low vibration, rolling through the air with something close to admiration, or was it frustration? Elias let out a breathless chuckle. Yeah, we get that a lot. A slow tilt of her head. Something in her gaze shifted, lingering on the way his body struggled, the way his breath hitched when he moved. It wasn't pity. It was consideration. A heavy pause. Then, she reached for something on her belt. Elias's muscles tensed. His instincts screamed trap, but he forced himself to stay still. She wouldn't waste words if she planned to kill him. Instead of a weapon, she produced a small vial filled with glowing amber liquid. She held it between them, studying him. This will keep you alive, she said. A statement. Not an offer. Elias hesitated. There was meaning behind this. The Syndicari didn't share their resources, not with outsiders. Not with humans. What's the price? He rasped, holding her gaze. Her lips parted slightly, the faintest flicker of hesitation. Then, she closed the distance between them in 3 measured strides. Elias barely had time to react before she gripped his jaw firmly, tilting his head up just enough to meet her golden stare. Then she exhaled. Warmth washed over his lips, his skin, the breath carrying something electric, primal, dangerously intimate. His lungs seized, his heart slammed against his ribs. His body responded before his mind could. This wasn't just air. This was life. The vial had been a test. This was the real gift. His body trembled, instincts battling understanding, but she did not move away. Instead, her grip tightened, her breath lingering, waiting. An invitation. A challenge. Elias's mind spun. The Syndicari didn't breathe with others. Breath was sacred, a bond shared only between warriors of equal standing, or between something far more dangerous. His throat went dry. What does this mean? He asked, voice hoarse. Verika's lips curled, just slightly. Her golden eyes flickered over him, reading every shiver, every unspoken question. Then she whispered, You already know. And he did. The air between them burned. The war no longer mattered. Because this was something else entirely. The warmth lingered. Elias stood frozen, still feeling the ghost of Verika's breath against his lips. His heart pounded, confusion warring with something deeper, something unspoken. Syndicari didn't share breath casually. That was intimacy. That was power. That was a bond. He forced himself to step back, though every instinct screamed to lean forward, to chase whatever just passed between them. The distance barely helped. His body still remembered. Verika's golden gaze never wavered. If she felt the same seismic shift in the air, she gave no sign. She was unreadable, expression carved from stone, but Elias could feel the tension, like a string pulled too tight, one touch away from snapping. What the hell just happened? He exhaled sharply, trying to ground himself. So, what now? Verika tilted her head. That depends. On what? She reached out without hesitation. Fingers, lethal, calloused, and warm, brushed his throat, just under his jaw, where his pulse thundered against his skin. He flinched. Not because he feared her, but because she shouldn't be touching him like this. Her gaze flicked over his reaction, something sparking behind her eyes, a calculation, a challenge, a test. Then she murmured, On whether you survive what I just did to you. His stomach dropped. The warmth in his chest turned to ice. What the fuck does that mean? He rasped. Her fingers tightened just slightly, enough to command his attention, to hold him still, as if he might bolt. Then, she leaned in. Close enough for him to catch the scent of her, smoke, iron, and something distinctly alien, something intoxicating. Close enough for her voice to slip under his skin like a whispered knife. You breathe my air now, she said, and there was weight to those words, a meaning layered far beyond language. Sindakari lungs are not made for human bodies. Your cells will change. You will change. His blood turned cold. Change how? She didn't answer. Not immediately. Instead, her fingers traced just barely over his skin, over the rapid pulse beneath. Your kind does not understand what breath means to us, she murmured. It is not survival alone. It is. She paused, searching for the right word. Then, claim. Elias's brain stalled. Claim. The word echoed, its implications snapping into place like the final tumbling pieces of a puzzle he hadn't realized he was solving. His stomach twisted. You mean like? Yes. Fuck. Elias swallowed hard, pulse hammering against her fingertips. You could have warned me before you decided to. Would it have changed your choice? The answer shoved itself to the front of his mind before he could stop it. No. He'd still have let her do it. He would have hesitated, questioned, but when it came down to it, he wouldn't have stopped her. That realization hit him like a freight train. Verika must have seen it in his face because her lips curled, just slightly, a dangerous, knowing thing. You do not understand what you are to me now, she said, voice lower, rougher. But you will. Elias fought to breathe evenly. And what am I to you now? She studied him, slow and deliberate. Then, she stepped back, only slightly, just enough for him to miss the heat of her. You are bound, she said simply. He should have argued, should have rejected whatever insane cultural ritual she just dragged him into, but deep down, he knew. Something changed. Something irreversible. And for the first time since the war began, Elias wasn't sure if he wanted to fight it. The Sindakari warlord had claimed him. But the most dangerous part, he wasn't sure he minded. The realization settled between them like an unspoken force, thick in the air, pulsing with an intensity either could ignore. Bound. Elias didn't know what that truly meant in Sindakari culture, but he could feel it, a tether between them, tightening with every breath. The firelit ruins of the battlefield were distant now, the immediate threat of war replaced with something far more dangerous, something personal. Verika watched him, unreadable. Her golden eyes flickered with something he couldn't name. It wasn't regret. It wasn't uncertainty. It was patience. And that made him uneasy. You've barely spoken since I told you, she observed, voice calm, measured. Too measured. Elias exhaled sharply, raking a hand through his sweat-matted hair. Yeah, well, excuse me for not having a pre-prepared response to congratulations. You're now biologically linked to an alien warlord. Her lips curled slightly. You make it sound so crude. Because it is. His voice had an edge sharper than he intended, but she didn't flinch. She only tilted her head, studying him in that unnerving way of hers. Is it? She murmured. Elias opened his mouth, ready to argue, ready to demand some kind of explanation for what was happening to him. But he hesitated. Because despite his frustration, his confusion, the overwhelming weight of this bond, he couldn't deny what he felt. His body was changing. It wasn't just the warmth in his lungs, or the way his muscles didn't ache as much as they should have. It was something deeper, something crawling through his veins, threading itself into him. And worse? Verika knew it. She could probably feel it, too. Elias set his jaw, forcing himself to focus. I need you to explain exactly what you did to me. No more cryptic warrior poet bullshit. Straight answers. Verika considered this, then gave a slow, deliberate nod. Very well, she said. But you will not like what you hear. That was becoming a trend. She motioned for him to sit on a jagged slab of broken stone. He hesitated but finally relented, lowering himself onto the cool surface. Vyurka remained standing, her imposing frame casting a faint shadow over him, but she was not looming. She was waiting, choosing her words carefully. And that made Elias nervous. Finally she spoke. Sindakari do not bond lightly, she began, voice quiet but steady. Our breath is not merely air, it carries essence. It feeds life. It changes. Elias frowned. Changes what? Verika's eyes flickered. You. His stomach tightened. He already knew. He could feel it, thrumming beneath his skin. Still, he needed to hear her say it. What the hell does that mean? Her gaze didn't waver. Your body is adapting, she said simply. Your blood, your lungs, your very cells, they are rewriting themselves to accept mine. Elias's breath caught. It hit him all at once, why he hadn't collapsed from exhaustion, why his body wasn't breaking under the weight of its injuries, why his heart still pounded at a steady rhythm despite everything. Because it wasn't just his anymore. A cold, twisting sensation spread through his gut. You're telling me I'm turning into one of you? Verika's expression remained unreadable, but her voice was soft when she said, No. You are becoming something new. Elias stood abruptly, pulse hammering in his throat. His head spun, not from weakness, but from what this meant. She had changed him. Not just claimed him, but rewritten him at the most fundamental level. And he had no say in it. You had no right to do this to me, he ground out. Verika's expression didn't shift. You had a choice. His breath hitched. She was right. Back on that battlefield, when she had offered him air, life, survival, he had taken it. He could have refused. Could have let himself choke, let the toxins of the atmosphere take him. But he hadn't. Because despite everything, despite the war, despite the chaos, he wanted to live. And he had trusted her to let him. Elias exhaled harshly, raking his fingers through his hair. He felt raw, exposed, changed in ways he couldn't put into words. His skin buzzed under her gaze, as if she could feel the shift as deeply as he could. Why me? He finally asked. The words felt small, but the weight behind them was immense. Verika's golden eyes softened, just barely. There was a moment, she said, stepping forward, slow, deliberate, closing the distance between them. When you fell before me, mask broken, breath failing. He remembered. The heat in his chest. The panic. The way she had suddenly been there, before he even realized he needed her. You did not beg, she murmured. You did not curse me. You simply looked at me, as though I was the last thing you would ever see. Elias swallowed hard. Her voice was barely a whisper now. I could not let that be true. The words settled over him, thick and heavy, tangling with something deep in his ribs. She had saved him. But it was not an act of war. Not an act of mercy. It had been a choice. And now, he belonged to her. His breast shuddered. He wasn't sure if it was from fear, or something far more dangerous. Tell me I still have a choice, he said quietly. Verika watched him for a long moment. Then, to his absolute shock, she reached for his hand. She did not grip it. Did not claim it. She simply offered it. You always have a choice, she said. But you must decide, will you run from what you are becoming, or will you see where it leads? Elias looked down at her hand. Felt the weight of the moment crushing down on him. And for the first time, he realized. It was not a burden. It was a path. And it was one he was already walking. The moment stretched between them, heavy with something neither of them could name. Elias stared at Verika's outstretched hand. The gesture was simple, but the weight behind it was monumental. This wasn't just a choice, it was a threshold. If he took her hand, there would be no turning back. And maybe that should have terrified him. But it didn't. Not anymore. His pulse thrummed, his breath slower, deeper than before. He could still feel the change within him, the Sindhikari breath in his lungs, the slow shift of something more alien taking root in his blood. It should have felt like an invasion, like something stolen from him. Instead, it felt like becoming. He exhaled, his fingers brushing against hers, testing. The contact sent heat curling up his arm, not from temperature, but from something older, deeper, a connection neither of them fully understood yet. Verika didn't move. She simply watched, waiting for him to decide. For the first time, she wasn't demanding anything from him. She was giving him the power to choose. Elias closed his fingers around hers. The effect was instantaneous. Verika's eyes widened, and a shudder passed through her, something so subtle he almost missed it. But he felt it, through his skin, through the strange tether that bound them. The Sindhikari warlord, so composed, so unshakable, had reacted to him. Her fingers tightened around his. "You accept it," she murmured. Not a question. A statement. Elias met her gaze. "I don't know what I'm accepting," he admitted. "But I know I can't walk away." A slow exhale left her lips. Relief? Satisfaction? Something else? He couldn't tell. But the gold in her eyes seemed brighter now. "You do not need to know everything," she said, her voice softer than he had ever heard it. "Only that this is real." Elias swallowed hard. "And what happens now?" Verika stepped forward. He didn't back away. She lifted her free hand, not to strike, not to command, but to trace the line of his jaw with a touch so deliberate it sent a shiver down his spine. "No," she murmured. "I teach you what it means to be bound." His breath hitched. This was more than physical. More than cultural. It was intimate in ways he couldn't fully process yet. Sindhikari warriors did not share breath without purpose. It was more than survival. It was claim, connection, choice. Elias had chosen her back. And now, there was no undoing it. His skin tingled under her touch, his body caught between the foreign and the familiar. She was taller, stronger, her presence a storm he had willingly walked into. But he wasn't drowning. He was learning how to breathe within it. Verika watched him with sharp, knowing eyes. "You feel it," she whispered. Elias clenched his jaw, trying to suppress the shudder rippling through him. "Yeah." Her lips parted slightly, and for a moment, just a moment, she looked vulnerable. As if the reality of this bond struck her just as deeply. "I have never bound with another," she admitted. Elias blinked. That wasn't what he expected. A warlord. A legend among her people. And yet. "You've never done this?" he asked, voice quieter. Verika's fingers twitched against his skin. "No." He couldn't tell if she regretted it. If this moment unsettled her as much as it did him. But she had still chosen him. And that meant something. Elias let out a shaky breath. "Guess we're both figuring this out then." A ghost of a smile touched her lips. Not mocking. Not cruel. Just something real. Then she leaned in, her lips a whisper from his. Not a kiss, Sindhikari didn't kiss. But her breath ghosted against his, warm and electric, sending fire racing through his veins. Elias didn't pull away. Instead, he let himself fall into it. Into her. Into whatever this was becoming. His body had changed. His future had changed. But for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel lost. He felt found. And Verika? For all her strength, all her power, she looked at him like he was the one thing she hadn't been prepared for. Maybe they were both in too deep now. But neither of them were trying to escape.